Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do the uglies. The uglies are the 6s, the 7s, the 8s, and the 9s. Often when we do multiplication drills, these are the ones people get wrong. And they're the ones that people leave to the very end because they think they're really hard. But key thing here, use what you already know. If you use what you already know, these aren't too difficult at all. In fact, I often use what I already know to figure these ones out. Off we go. All right, so dealing with the 6s, a couple of different ways to think about the 6s. One way we can think about the 6s is the 6s are, there we go. Oh, no, that's not what I'm looking for. The 6s are, where did our highlighter go? There we go. 6s are the same things as basically two groups of 3 of whatever it is. So if we're doing 3 times 4 like we are right here, a good way to think about the 6s is that it's the same thing as 3 times 4 plus 3 times 4. So you can use what you already know. If we already know that 3 times 4 is 12, then we just got to add another 3 times 4 to it. And we'll know then that we're going to get, I got to figure out how to use this. We're going to get 12 plus 12, which is 24. So we can use what we already know. In this case is that 6 is equal to 2 times 3. The other thing that I often like to do is just remember that 6 is equal to 5 plus 1. So if I was using an example like 6 times 4 again, I can remember that, well, 5 times 4 is equal to 20. And then I just have to make sure that I'm adding another 1 to that. And so 1 times 4 is 4. Adding those together, I get 24. So that's another way to think about doing it. Now, of course, that works a lot better when we have bigger numbers. If I'm dealing with 6 times 17 and I want to know what that is, I might try 5 times 17. 5 times 17 is pretty easy for me to do because I can remember that, well, 5 times 10 is 50. 5 times 70 is 35. So together that's 85. But I've got to add one more 17 to it because 5 plus 1 makes 6. So if I add one more 17 to that, that's going to give me 102. So that's one way we can do that as well. So 2 different ways to think about it, that either 6s are 5 plus 1 or 6s are 2 times 3. There's 2 different ways to approach the 6. Let's try one more with the 6. If I had 6 times 7, I might want to remember that this is basically the same thing as 3 times 7 plus 3 times 7. So that just is 21. I can remember that. 21 and 21 is going to give me 42. Using the other strategy, same thing. 6 times 7. I'm going to use my 5 plus 1 strategy. So 5 times 7, I remember is 35. And 1 times 7 just is another 7. So that's also going to give me 42. So that's another way of doing it. 2 different strategies. One using the 5 plus 1 strategy. The other using the 2 times 3 equals 6 strategy, which is right here. Let's look at some others. Ooh, the 7s. 7s are kind of interesting. Now, some people say that really the only way to master the 7s is to memorize them. We have to memorize them. 7, 14, 21, 35, 42, 49, 56, 63, and 70. So that's one way to go about it. The 7s are kind of a little bit ugly because when anything we have a 7 itself is a prime number. So it's not something you can easily break down in the way that, 4 is just double 2. But one strategy that you could possibly use is you could possibly think of 7 as 5 plus 2. The other thing you can do is just use what you know. Instead of focusing on the 7, focus on the other number. So in this case, we know what, we can just use what they already know, which is in this case, we know that 4 is 2 times 2. So I know what 2 times 7 is, and this side here is 2 times 7. So all I've got to do now is add those together. I've got 2 groups of 7 plus another group of 7, which is going to give me 4 groups of 7. Sorry, 2 groups of 7 here plus 2 groups of 7 is going to be 4 groups of 7. So 14 plus 14 is 28. So I can use what I already know. And you'll notice over here, it just occurred to me, we missed one. We missed 4 times 28, which should go in there. So you can use what you know. Another way, if we use this example up here, I know that 5 times 7 is 35. I know that 2 times 7 is 14. So I can then add those together and gonna give me 49. For whatever reason, 7 times 7, the square of 7 being 49, is just something I always remember. But if I didn't, this would be a good way to do it, and it'd also be a good way to check my answer in case I've got a little bit of a problem. So if we use what we know, we can manage the 7s. Let's get one more example with 7s. Let's say I've got 7 times 9, and this is going to get to another strategy we're going to use in a minute. Well, I know what 7 times 10 is. 7 times 10 is 70. And so I just got to minus 1 7, and that's going to give me my 63, which is the answer there. Another way I could do this 7 times 9 one is I know that 9 is equal to 3 plus 3 plus 3. And I can remember from before that 7 times 3 is equal to 21. So now I just got to do another 7 times 3 plus another 7 times 3, and that's going to give me 63. So this can be really handy, especially when we're using bigger numbers, is just to think about what you already know about numbers if you're multiplying by 7. So let's just do a tricky one here for example. So a tricky example, let's think of a tricky example. Let's do 7 times 13. That's a bit of a tricky one. Again, I'm going to look at what I already know, and I already know what 7 times 10 is, and I already know what 7 times 3 is. 10 and 3 is 13. And so if I add those together, I'm going to get my product of 7 times 13, which is going to be 91. All right, let's look at another ugly. Ooh, the 8s. Now, the 8s aren't too bad. Again, use what you already know. You know that 8 is 2 times 4. We also know that 4 is double. So 8 is actually double. Let me show you. 8 times 3. Well, it's just double 2 times 3, which is 6. Double 6 is 12. Double 12 is 24. So there's double. The other way I could do this is use the example that we've got right there. 8, or let's do 8 times 3 again. So 8 times 3. Well, I know that 4 times 3 is 12. And so if I just double that, that's going to give me 24. So there's another way of doing the 8s. Sometimes for bigger numbers, we might want to think about thinking about 8 as just simply 10 minus 2. So let me give you an example of that. Let's say I've got 8 times 17. Tricky. Well, I'm going to use 10. I know 10 times 17, well, that's pretty easy. 170. But then I've got to take away 2 times 17, because I got to take 2 away from my 10. 2 times 17, well, that's 20. 2 times 10 is 20. 2 times 7 is 14, so that's 34. So I've got to subtract 34 from 170, and that's going to give me 146. So 8 times 17 is 146. All right, last one. Let's look at the. We've already seen that the 9s are not so tricky as they may seem. 9s are, if we use what we already know, we could figure out that 9 is simply 3 times 3. The other thing that we can do here is to remember that 9 is always just 10 minus 1. If I've got 10 groups of 4 and I just get rid of 1, I'm going to be left with what we do here, 36. So 4 times 9, think about it this way, 4 times 10 is 40. Now, if we minus 4 from that, we're going to get 36. And actually, there's a little bit of a pattern here. Can you see it? Can you see what the pattern here is? 18 is 20 minus 2. So if we take away the number that's in the tens column, we end up with the actual answer. So 30, 3 is in the tens column, take away 3, we get 27. 40, 4 is in the tens column, subtract that from 40, and we get 36. So there's kind of a cool pattern here that you can remember. So again, really helpful strategy anytime we're multiplying something by. Let's use our 17 example again. 17 times 9. Not sure exactly what that is, but I know that 17 times 10 is 170. And now I just have to do 17 times 1, and I have to subtract that because we need to take that away from here, and that's going to give me 153. So, big picture here with the uglies, guys. Use what you know. Have fun. The uglies don't have to be so ugly.